So you're ready to make the move to Southeast Tennessee, and after all of the spreadsheets, all of the late night scrolling, and all the conversations about whether you could actually pull this off, you landed on Chattanooga. And maybe for a few days, it felt right. Then you saw the headline. A national study by the finance company MoneyLion just ranked Chattanooga one of the most overpriced housing markets in the entire country. And just like that, the excitement that was in your stomach kind of turned to knots. Because the last thing that you want is to pour everything that you've saved into a place at exactly the wrong moment. To buy at the top in a market that's been running hot for years right when it finally starts to turn. So here's the thing, that fear is understandable, but that headline is totally wrong. And I can show you why with the only thing that ever tells the truth about a housing market. Not a headline, not a canned market report. I pulled the raw records, every single home that has actually sold here since 2019, more than 55,000 single family home closings. All of that so that you don't have to. Because overpriced and expensive do not mean the same thing. One of them should scare you and the other one is just a number that you can plan around. The same way that Megan and I had to plan when we made this move ourselves. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly which one Chattanooga falls into and where your money still stretches further than almost anyone moving here realizes. I'm Chris Roberts, your Southeast Tennessee relocation realtor, and I've helped folks make this move from all over the country. And whether you're relocating to the Chattanooga area from out of state, or you're already here in Cleveland or one of the smaller towns too, wondering if you missed your window, stick around. Because the real story underneath that headline is a whole lot more reassuring and a whole lot more useful than any ranking ever could be. And when you're ready to dive in and start looking for a new home here, my number is gonna be right here on the screen in front of you to call or text me anytime. Okay, so let's open the hood on this study. Their entire overpriced headline comes down to a single comparison. They took the average value of homes here and held it up against the median asking price. And before we go one step further, what's the difference between the average and the median price? Stick with me because this one little distinction is gonna make all the difference here. So say 5 homes sell on your street. 4 of them go for right around $300,000, and then the 5th one, some show place with a view, sells for like $3 million. The average, you add all those up together, divide by 5, and you land somewhere around $840,000. Now, does anybody actually believe that the typical home on that street is worth $840,000? Of course not. That one mansion grabbed the number and just dragged it into outer space. The median fixes that. You just line all 5 sales up from the cheapest to the priciest, and you point at the one in the middle, $300,000. That mansion's still sitting right there in the lineup. The median, it just doesn't let it boss the other numbers around. So median and average are not 2 words for the same thing. They're 2 completely different numbers, and depending on which one that you reach for, you can make a housing market look like just about anything that you want to. Which brings us right back to MoneyLion. To get that overpriced headline, they compared the average of one thing to the median of another. That's apples and oranges served up as a fruit platter and put on the evening news. And that's before that we get to the second problem. They were using asking prices to begin with. Asking isn't selling. As a guy who spent a good chunk of his life around musicians, let me tell you, you can put any price tag that you want on a used guitar. Whether anybody's actually gonna pay that price, completely different story. The only number that tells you the truth about a market is what people actually paid. So I pulled it, the raw transactions, not just the summary report. Every single family home that sold from Chattanooga proper out to Cleveland and all the small towns around it, going all the way back to 2019. Remember, I looked through more than 55,000 closings, and here's what those thousands of real sales say. Homes around here have sold for about 98 cents on every dollar of the seller's very first asking price. And that's not just last year, that's every single one of the past 6 years. Now think about what that means. If this market were truly overpriced, if sellers were getting greedy and asking more than their homes were actually worth, those homes would sit. The price would get cut and then get cut again, and then it'd finally limp across the finish line for way under asking. That's what an overpriced market looks like. That is not what's happening here. Homes are, on average, selling for almost just what they were listed for, which is just another way of saying they're priced right where the market actually is. So, no, by the one measure that actually counts, Chattanooga is not overpriced. But I know what some of you are thinking, because it sure doesn't feel that way, does it? You've watched what these prices have done, and that feeling that everything just costs more than it used to, that part's totally real, and there's a reason behind it. And once you understand it, you are never going to look at a price tag the same way again. So if Chattanooga isn't overpriced, why does it feel like everything costs a fortune? Here's the reason, and it might be the most important one in this whole video. Go back to 2019, right before the whole world went sideways. Back then, $300,000 in Hamilton County bought you a home with about 2,500 square feet. Comfortable, room to breathe, maybe an office, a guest room, a yard for a dog. Now take that exact same $300,000 today, and you know what it buys? About 1,500 square feet. Same money, same city, and more than 1,000 square feet just kind of vanished. That's over 40% less house, and the price of a single square foot around here has jumped more than 70% in just 6 years. Now, here's the part that surprises people, and it's the part that I really want you to hear because it's where the headlines really get it wrong all over again. The houses themselves, they didn't shrink, and believe me, I kind of went looking for that. Home builders aren't necessarily cramming families into smaller and smaller boxes, smaller lots. Yeah, but it's not the house that got smaller. Unfortunately, it's the dollar. And you've already felt this everywhere else in your life. It's the bag of chips that somehow is half air now. It's the cereal box that quietly slipped from 18 ounces down to 14 ounces for the same $5. There's a word for it, and that's shrinkflation. And somewhere along the line, that wandered out of the grocery store and moved into the housing market. So if you've been sitting there just scrolling through listings, running the math, feeling a little crazy, like the numbers, they're just not adding up the way that they did when your parents bought their place, or even the way that it did for you 6 or 7 years ago, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy, and you're not bad with money. The dollar, it just moved out from under your feet. That's not a you problem. That's a math problem, and it's happening to everybody, everywhere. But here's something positive to take note of, because while all of this has been happening, something else really started to shift underneath this market. And this time it shifted in your favor as a buyer. So what exactly shifted? Well, time did. You finally got some. Let me take you back to 2021 because you need to feel what buyers were up against. Back then, the typical home in Hamilton County sold in 4 days. A house would hit the market on a Thursday, and by the time that you finished your morning cup of coffee and called your agent to schedule a showing, it was already gone. Usually to someone who offered like 10 grand over asking, sight unseen, waived the inspections just to have a shot. And that was the game. And if that sounds exhausting and just a little insane, that's because it was. Now, that same home is taking around 3 to 4 weeks to sell. And I know that homes are taking longer to sell. Sounds like bad news at first, but slow down, because for you, this is absolutely wonderful news. 3 to 4 weeks means that you can actually breathe. You can sleep on it. You can get the inspection and use it. You can ask the seller to fix the roof or knock something off the price and not get laughed out of the room. The frenzy didn't just cost people money, it forced buyers into a situation where they couldn't make a calm and thoughtful decision. Well, that chance is back, and here is the proof it's real. This might be my favorite number in the whole data set. Back in that 2021 madness, almost nothing failed to sell. You could list a glorified shoebox at a ridiculous price and somebody was still gonna fight you for it. Only about one listing in every 40 never found a buyer. Today, it's roughly 1 in 5. That's one home out of every 5 listings here expires without selling. So what changed? Yes, we've seen mortgage rates go up, and yes, we've seen inflation tick back up to a 3-year high. But most importantly, buyers kind of got their nerve back. They started saying no, and when I dug into which homes are the ones sitting here dying on the past, it's exactly the ones that you would guess, the overpriced ones. The homes that fail to sell today are asking about 10% more per square foot than homes that actually close, and that right there is how we put a bow on this whole overpriced question. Chattanooga as a market is not overpriced, but the days of a seller just slapping a fantasy number on a house and getting away with it, yeah, those days are over. You just got handed the power to walk away from any home that's overpriced and watch it sit there until the price kind of falls back down to earth. So you've got time and you've got leverage, but there's one more piece, and it's the one that if you're thinking of moving to Chattanooga, you might never find it if you don't look 30 minutes up the road. Everybody types the exact same thing into the search bar: homes for sale in Chattanooga, or what's it like to live in Chattanooga? And they fall in love with the city, the river, bridges, brunch on the south side. And they never once think to look at what's happening just a little further out. So let me show you. Drive about 30 minutes in nearly any direction out of Chattanooga and you'll land in places like Cleveland up in Bradley County. Athens is a little bit further north in McMinn County, but the small towns that are tucked in around them, same mountains, same lakes, same Tennessee, and same no state income tax. And here's what your money does out there. Right now, the typical home in Hamilton County, Chattanooga proper, is selling for right around $397,000. Now, that's the median price, not the average. Drive 30 minutes out to those surrounding counties, and that same typical home is going to run about $323,000. That's roughly $74,000 for a 30-minute drive. Now, was it always this lopsided? No, not even close. Back in 2019, that gap was only about $30,000, so it's more than doubled in just 6 years. The harder this market has run, the more quietly it's been paying people to look just outside of the city. Now, stack it all together. Out in those counties, homes don't just cost less, they also sit a little longer before they sell. Remember that leverage that we talked about? It's even stronger out here. More time, more room to negotiate, more house for the dollar. It's the best buyer's position in the whole region, and it's hiding 30 minutes from the part that everybody's fighting over. Now, despite what it might sound like, I'm not telling you to just skip out on moving to Chattanooga. I really do love this city, but your dollar's been shrinking, and this is exactly where you go to get some of it back. Now, I've spent this whole video telling you why that scary headline was wrong and where your money goes furthest, so I'd be doing you dirty if I didn't stop and tell you the truth about who this market is genuinely hard for, because it isn't for everyone. If you're moving here from a higher cost part of the country, think California, the Northeast, Colorado, Texas, or some other big metro, and you're bringing equity from a home that you're selling, I'll be straight with you, this market is a gift. Your dollar is going to stretch dramatically further here than where you're leaving. You may be in the strongest position that you've ever been in before. But here's the other side of that. If you're planning to buy here on a local paycheck, this market gotten genuinely tight. Back in 2021, the typical home cost a little over 4 times what a typical local household earned in a year. Today, it's pushing closer to 5 times that. The old rule of thumb that around 3 times your income is comfortable and 5 times your income and on up is a stretch, we crossed that line. Local wages just haven't kept up with what homes have done, and that's not really just a Chattanooga problem, it's most of the country right now. But it's real, and it lands hardest on first-time buyers. So who should pump the brakes? If buying here would stretch you so thin that just one blown transmission or one rough month is going to tip you over, that's not a green light no matter how much you love it here. If you're hunting a 5-bedroom on the budget that bought a 5-bedroom in 2019, that house at that price is not waiting here for you anymore. And if you're not actually ready to use that leverage that we talked about, to be patient, to walk away, to let an overpriced house just sit there, then a cooling market can't do much for you either. I will never talk you into a house. That's not my job. I'd rather lose your business today than hand you the keys to something that's just not sustainable economically. Because here's what I really want you to walk out of this video holding on to. When Megan and I made this move, we didn't do it on a spreadsheet. I mean, we ran the numbers, of course, but what we were really chasing was a feeling. Pulling into the driveway at the end of a long day and just exhaling. A Saturday morning that's quiet in the best way. Finally being able to be somewhere that felt like us. A national headline can't tell you whether you'll feel that here. A study ranking 50 cities by some incorrect formula has no idea what your life is going to feel like on that Tuesday in Cleveland, or paddleboarding out on the river in Chattanooga, or on a back porch in McMinn County, just watching the fog burn off those hills. Those headlines are built to rattle you in like 8 seconds. Your actual life here would be measured in years, so don't let one ranking built on the wrong math, comparing the wrong numbers, make the biggest decision of your life for you. Look at what homes actually sell. Look at where your dollar still stretches. Then go see it for yourself and feel whether it fits. If this cleared up even a little of that fog, do me one small favor and drop a comment telling me where you're moving from. I read every single one of them, and honestly, it helps me make these videos better for you. And if you've got questions, a specific town, a specific budget, or whether your situation is going to be one of the ones that I'd tell you just to wait on, that's the job, and I'd be glad to help. No pressure, no pitch. There's a link below in the description where you can reach me, and a free Chattanooga relocation guide right down there too, just in case you want somewhere to start. And if you're ready to start that journey together, my number is going to be right here on the screen in front of you. I can't wait to see how I can help you live your best life in Southeast Tennessee.